You can ask someone to find 11,000 votes in Georgia. We know someone who did. Or you can go out and earn them. That's how it should be done. You know, stump for them, shake hands, kiss a lot of babies for them. Show up places where people might be surprised to see you because their community is very much in favor of your opponent. They're wondering why you're there. But even in the course of an election, both candidates insist is the most important of our lifetimes. There's nothing quite like a good old-fashioned barnstorming. And so with that plane door opening in Savannah just moments ago, you can see it right there, Vice President Harris and Governor Walz coming off the plane. They are back on the trail in a freshly painted bus. And maybe we'll get to see the bus, maybe even inside the bus, we'll see over the next 2 hours. We should expect to see more of them. We'll bring that to you as it comes as well. Now, their mission over the next day and a half in Georgia is to boldly go where so few Democrats, at least ones running for president lately, have gone before, South Georgia. Politico calls it a high-risk, high-reward strategy, extending beyond the Atlanta metro area down into southeastern counties, rural and red as they are. It's also all a part of a remarkable shift in course, even from a few weeks ago. As NBC News notes, this was not a state, at least in the past couple months, that the Biden team was betting on for November at all. But the switch to Vice President Harris appears to have awoken something inside the party, maybe even inside Georgia. A renewed optimism that maybe 2020 wasn't a fluke, that maybe Georgia really is a battleground state that everybody should be competing in every 4 years. And don't take our word for it. Ask the chairman of Georgia's Gwinnett County Republican Party, Sammy Baker. Here's what they had to say. I was very, very comfortable that it would be not an easy win, but would be a 4 or 5 point win. I think it's going to be a little tighter now because I think she's energized a few of the Democrats that were not energized before, and they seem to be a little more active. The party will hope to recreate the success it had last cycle when Senator Raphael Warnock's winning strategy included appealing to many of these same voters, showing up places nobody expected them to show up. As NBC News also reported, quote, to win Georgia, Harris will need to reproduce the formula that powered Biden and Warnock, boosting turnout and mobilizing Democrats in deep blue Atlanta, putting big points on the board in the city's population-rich suburbs, which are full of well-educated voters who are skeptical of Trump, and limiting her margin of defeat in the vast and solidly red rural areas, where losing by less could hand her the state's 16 electoral votes. So that's the plan for today and also for tomorrow, hopping from county to county, small town to small town, culminating in a major rally tomorrow back in Savannah. If you can believe it, there are just 10 Tuesdays left until Election Day. And a Georgia win would be quite a win in November. Democrats definitely still have their work cut out for them, but it appears that Harris and Walz are getting to work. And that's where we start today with former Atlanta mayor and senior advisor to the Harris-Walz campaign, Keisha Lance Bottoms. You know a thing or two about Georgia politics, and you've seen a lot happen over the past couple of weeks. So let me just start with this overall strategy, because there's often a lot of focus on Atlanta, running up the vote total in Atlanta. But it's hard to win statewide without running up totals in other places. So what do you think of this bus tour strategy into South Georgia?
This is a campaign who's listening. As I said on the floor next to a delegate just this past week in Chicago, he said, I think Walz and Harris would be great coming through rural parts of Georgia. And now they are doing just that. We have about nearly 12 million people in Georgia, about half of that population's in the metro area. So that means there are a lot of other folk out there throughout Georgia. And for as much as I love Atlanta, we've long said, get out of Atlanta. There are a lot of very active communities throughout the state. And even when you think of a place like Savannah, where Senator Warnock is from, that's a completely different media market. You've got places like Columbus, Macon, Augusta, Savannah, Chatham County, one of the largest counties in the state. Just west of that, another county that's one of the fastest growing in the nation. So I'm very happy to see that the campaign is there. And I can tell you the people are so excited to see that they are getting the attention that they deserve from this campaign.
No, Georgia, I mean, if you look back at the margins, and I looked them up today, or we looked them up today, because I think it's interesting for people to note this. I mean, Trump's margin in 2016 was 211,000 votes. Biden's margin in 2020, 11,000 votes. Some of this is kind of campaigning in places where people haven't gone before. There are also some issues that the Harris-Walz campaign is talking about, like rural health care. What are the other issues that you hope they're talking about as they're out there and that people really need to hear about in Georgia to consider this ticket?
Well, we know that immigration is a big topic of discussion throughout this state. We also know there are a lot of conversations surrounding the economy. And I think what you will see is the vice president and Governor Walz will go out and talk about how the Biden-Harris administration has delivered to this state, although Republicans seem to love to take credit for those things that are coming from this administration, and no Republicans voted to support the things coming from this administration. But nevertheless, it's made a difference in the state. We know that immigration is a big topic of discussion. And also, as we talk about labor shortages throughout the state. So those kitchen table issues that impact our communities, I'm sure we'll hear talk about how they have delivered directly to mayors and to counties so that we could put things in place to help with the crime surge that we saw during the Trump administration and the COVID pandemic. All of these things will be relevant to the people that they will see in these counties throughout the state.
It's so interesting. You're a very savvy politician. I don't have to tell you, because it's interesting you bring up immigration and crime, because these are two of the issues. Trump may be nonsensical when he's at speeches, but those are two of the issues that they're spending money on. The Trump campaign and Republicans on the airwaves and on the airwaves around Georgia and other parts of the country. What do you think? It's not all on the level, as my mother would say, but what do you think people need to know and understand about the Harris record and her positions on immigration and crime to kind of combat all of that money that's being spent on the airwaves?
Yeah, Jen, I was mayor when Trump was president, and it was complete chaos. And so much of it was driven from what was coming from the White House. And I remember my first meeting in the White House. You may remember that. It was in March of 21, where we sat down and we talked with a bipartisan group of mayors and governors about what we needed in our respective communities. And we talked about getting money directly into the hands of leaders so that we could reinforce the strategies we had put in place to help address this crime surge. That was a crime surge that happened under the Trump administration in cities across America. Also with immigration, there was a bipartisan immigration bill ready to go. And Donald Trump said it wouldn't be good for his election. So this is not a candidate who's serious about resolving the issues in our country. And I know that Vice President Harris will continue to hone in on that. When we had that meeting in the Oval Office, she was sitting right there in that meeting next to President Biden to help us address some of the issues that we were facing in our respective communities.
Part of what we've been talking about a little bit, and we just quoted the chairman of the Gwinnett Republican County Party, is sort of the surge of energy. You were a big supporter of President Biden's candidacy. You're also a big supporter of Vice President Harris's candidacy. There seems to have been, though, a surge in energy over the past couple of weeks. What are you seeing and hearing from people in Georgia, just in terms of Democrats and people who may have been sitting on the sidelines a month ago?
Well, what I always say, my favorite motto from campaigning is the streets don't lie. So when the streets are excited, when you're going in the grocery store and the hair salon and the barbershop and people are talking, they are excited. We had so much energy coming out of the convention. People are still talking about the convention. There's not a day that goes by that multiple people ask me, how was it in person? Because it looks so exciting on television. So the energy is real. Now we just have to make sure that we carry that energy on into the election. My 22-year-old son has received 4 mailers in the last week from the Donald Trump campaign. So what it says is that they aren't leaving anything to chance. So for as much as we have excitement, we've got to take it directly to people. That's the way we did it in 21. That's the way we did it in 22. And that's the way we did it in 20. And that's why we were able to send Senator Warnock and Ossoff and the Biden-Harris administration to Washington, D.C.